Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Translation. When Lord Brahma heard everything from the demigods and the members who had attended the sacrifice, he replied, "You cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality and thereby offend his lotus feet. You cannot have happiness in that way." Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that although Daksha wanted to enjoy the results of fruitive sacrificial activities, it is not possible to enjoy when one offends a great personality like Lord Shiva. It was good for Daksha to have died in the fight, because if he had lived, he would have committed such offenses as the lotus feet of great personalities again and again. According to Manu's law, when a person commits murder, punishment is beneficial for him, because if he is not killed, he might commit more and more murders and therefore be entangled in a future life for having killed so many persons. Therefore the king's punishment of a murderer is appropriate. If those who are extremely offensive are killed by the grace of the Lord, that is good for them. In other words, Lord Brahma explained to the demigods that it was good for Daksha to have been killed. Om Jnana Samandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakya Chakshurmilitanina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Satatanina Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanascha. Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tham Sadevam. Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Sa. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna. Kadakanya vibhupraha tejiyasi kritagati Srimaya tattva sabhuyan na prayena babhushatam. So Maitreya is explaining that after Daksha was killed, all the demigods, etc., they all approached Lord Brahma. Daksha was killed because of his very blasphemous and offensive attitude towards a very exalted personality of the stature of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary personality. Swayambhu Narada Sambhu Kamala Kapilo Mano Parado Janako Bhismo Bhalivaya Sakirvayam. Bhagavatam describes that Lord Shiva is one of the 12 Mahārajans or spiritual authorities. And he is Ashutosh, Mangala, very auspicious, very easily he gets satisfied. Lord Shiva is an incarnation of the qualities. So he has a very, very powerful and exalted position. Prajapati Daksha was very envious of this exalted position of Lord Shiva. And there he started criticizing him, and eventually he was killed. So Lord Brahma over here is making a very, very important point. Maitreya is stating that Lord Brahma told the demigods and the others who were in the sacrificial arena that was arranged by Daksha. They were all surprised when they saw that Daksha was killed. Lord Vishnu, however, and Brahma what was to follow. Therefore, they did not even attempt this sacrifice. So, when the demigods, etc., went to Lord Brahma, he heard everything from them and he said, "You cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality at the same time. You can't have happiness in this way." So, on the path of devotional service, one has to be very, very careful. One has to be very careful. One cannot think that I'm on the path of devotional service. Now I have a license for doing anything that I may desire. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has warned us of the mad elephant offense. How a mad elephant has the capacity to destroy even a very beautiful garden. You may have a very beautiful garden, but if you let a mad elephant let loose, then the mad elephant will destroy that beautiful garden. So Daksha, what was his weakness? He was envious. Envious of the exalted position of Lord Shiva. So when one is on the materialistic platform, envy is there. Lust, anger, greed, hatred, envy. These are all the anarthas that are the obstacles for spiritual advancement. And unless these anarthas are curbed, unless we check these anarthas, our spiritual progress will be very, very slow. Therefore, Rupa Goswami has recommended a very genuine process of controlling these anarthas. Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explained how one proceeds the initial stage of Shraddha to the stage of eventually developing Krishna Prema. He explains how, at the very inception, they must be Shraddha or desire. What is that desire? There is a goal in life. There is something beyond materialistic activities. I must look for God. And that Shraddha brings one to have spiritual association known as Sadhu Sangha. Sarvasya chahan hirdi tani vishto mataha smriti jnanam apahanam cha. Krishna is in everyone's heart, and in that position he recognizes our desires and causes remembrance and forgetfulness. So when Krishna sees that here is somebody who desires to be free from the Janma Mithya, then he brings him in association with Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha may take on various forms. You distribute a book to somebody on the street, that's the beginning of Sadhu Sangha. You talk to an individual on the street, that's another aspect of Sadhu Sangha. You invite someone to the temple, that's another aspect. Now when you get Sadhu Sangha, then you recognize that if you want to develop love of God, there is a certain process and there are no shortcuts. So then one gets educated about the importance of chanting the holy names of Krishna, the importance of following regulative principles, the importance of Vaidhi Bhakti, etc. And if one takes advantage of these instructions, then he begins the process regularly, rigidly, makes an application as Prabhupada said, gradually gets initiated, continues following. So this is known as a stage of Bhajana Kriya. That is where you very strictly follow the different rules and regulations. You do your japa, etc. every day. Now as you execute this process of Bhajana Kriya, there is a very positive development. And the positive development is the anarthas in the heart that we briefly described at the commencement of the class, like envy, greed, hatred, etc. They all begin to melt. They all begin to melt, or they all begin to diminish, just like when a sick patient takes medicine. So as he consumes the medicine, the germs in the body begin to get killed. And gradually, the person becomes healthy again. So similarly, we have unlimited sinful desires or sinful germs in the body, and they get manifested in different ways. Lust, anger, greed, envy, hatred, these are all the results of the anarthas that are there in the heart. And as long as one is on the materialistic platform, his activities are greatly motivated and influenced by the presence of these anarthas. Rupa Goswami states, however, that if the process of bhajana kriya is executed with faith and regularly, then there will be Anartha Nivritti. That is the anarthas. Daksha's anartha was that he was envious of the exalted position of Lord Shiva. So similarly, we all have so many different anarthas, and these anarthas are the stumbling blocks on the path back to Godhead. So we have to take care of them. Oil in the body, we have to take care of it. So, by the execution of bhajana kriya, there is anartha nivritti. The anarthas begin to diminish. And as the anarthas begin to diminish, there is another positive development which is known as nishtha. As the anarthas begin to diminish, then you develop nishtha. What is nishtha? Nishtha is firm faith. Firm faith that Krishna is supreme. Chanting the holy name is the best means. I must follow the spiritual master. I must follow the shastras. That is nishtha. And that is firm faith. So very often we see that people join the movement, they get initiated, they even become sannyasis, and they also give up Krishna consciousness. That is because they have not reached the stage of nishtha. That is because they're still in a somewhat neophyte stage. Because the stage of nishtha is realized only after one has successfully executed the process of bhajana kriya. Then you develop firm faith, and then gradually you progress further and further to ruchi, asvashakti, and bhava and prema. So the point that we wish to make is that without bhajana kriya, attentive bhajana kriya, you can't expect these anarthas to be eliminated or to be conquered. Therefore, if we are desirous of making spiritual advancement, then the bhajana kriya process should not be compromised at any cost. Therefore, Rupa Goswami has said, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati kriyata nidikatopi labhate. Then my dear friend, whatever price that may be needed to pay to become Krishna conscious, pay that price. Don't compromise. Just like we're all used to bargaining. You go to India to shop, you have predetermined item when you bargain. Rupa Goswami says, don't bargain, pay the price. So, if you pay the price, then there is positive development. So, one has to be very cautious on the spiritual path that one avoids all aparats, especially Vaishnava aparats and Guru aparats. These are very, very dangerous and can seriously curtail whatever gain they may be by chanting the holy names of Krishna. That is why Krishnadas Kaviraj says, Bhajan kare yadi shravana kirtana prabhutana paya Krishna pade premadhana. That one may go on chanting the names of Krishna, birth after birth, but if one is not careful in avoiding the 10 offenses, then there will not be the development of Krishna prema. Prabhupada gives a nice example that when you're walking on a very sunny day, when it's very, very hot, those of you who have been on parikramas in India may have experienced that sometimes it's very, very hot. So the head can tolerate the sun, but the feet cannot tolerate, isn't it? You begin to run. When it's very, very hot on these parikramas, the head can tolerate the sun. The head has the capacity to tolerate. But the feet, you begin to run. I remember on some of these parikramas, sometimes so hot, you actually have to run. But the feet cannot tolerate the effect of the hot sun. So similarly, a devotee, he on his own may tolerate the offenses that one may commit. Because by nature, devotee is very tolerant. If you examine the qualities that are described in numerous places in the scriptures, you find the word titikshava repeating itself again and again. Titikshva karunikaha suda sarva dhainam ajata sattva shanta sadva sadhu bhushnaha. So the devotee by nature is titikshva, very, very tolerant. We even saw Lord Shiva display this quality of tolerance. Daksha was insulting him so rudely, but that Shiva was just tolerating it. Lord Shiva's followers were angry, but Shiva was very tolerant. He's the Tikshava. The Vaishnava is very tolerant. So, a Vaishnava, he is tolerant when somebody commits an offense. But the Lord, he will not tolerate it. Just like you may be able to bear the hot sun, but your feet cannot bear the hot sun. You understand? So, a devotee is willing and tolerant to bear insults from anyone. But the Lord is not willing to bear insults offered to his genuine devotees. Therefore, the Lord will not tolerate it. The devotee will not say anything. You can insult him, ridicule him, abuse him. But Krishna will not be pleased. And Krishna will not tolerate it. Therefore, Prabhupada explains that when you serve an advanced devotee, when you serve a Vaishnava, you accumulate assets. And when you blaspheme a Vaishnava, you diminish your assets. You understand? When we chant, we serve, we are accumulating assets. But when we commit Vaishnava aparadha, we diminish our assets. And we diminish our assets to the point, hey, even the holy names will escape your tongue. You won't be able to even chant. We've seen ourselves in a long history of this Krishna conscious movement, how devotees were there in very exalted positions. But because of committing Vaishnava aparadha, etc., gradually they lost the opportunity to serve, and it gradually fell into the influence of the illusory energy. So, the devotee is tolerant, but the Lord will not tolerate. When you do devotional service, your assets increase. When you commit aparadha, your assets diminish. Hiranyakashipu, he was very envious of whom? Of the very exalted devotee Prahlad. And he was so envious. Prahlad was innocent, but he was always looking for some fault in Prahlad. Eventually he had to be killed by the Supreme Lord. So we had to be very, very careful on the devotional path that in our Vaishnava dealings we do not commit Vaishnava aparadha. In this section of the Bhagavatam, Sati describes the character of Lord Shiva. Sati was very offended when her father Daksha was so offensive to Lord Shiva. So Sati said, my husband, he is so tolerant that he always looks at the good qualities of everyone and magnifies it. She said that my husband is so magnanimous that he's so wonderful that he magnifies the good qualities in everyone. He doesn't look at their faults. So Prabhupada explains that this is the mentality of a Vaishnava. He takes on the good qualities of everyone and magnifies, just like the bee. When the bee goes to a flower, the bee is only interested in the honey inside the flower. The bee is not interested in the thorns or the color of the flower. When the bee goes to a flower, it's only interested in the honey. It doesn't care whether the flower is black, white, brown, and it doesn't even care about the thorns that surround the flower. It is only interested in the honey inside. So similarly, Prabhupada explains the devotee. He is interested and meditates on the good qualities of all the Vaishnavas. And by meditating on the good qualities of all the Vaishnavas, one automatically becomes respectful to the Vaishnava. Generally, we find that we tend to multiply our good qualities and divide everyone else's good qualities. So what happens? We become so tall and everyone else becomes so short. And then we all become proud like Daksha. So that is actually a very dangerous path to take. That is why we address each other as Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So when you're looking at the good qualities of all Vaishnavas, then naturally one is inspired to call them Prabhu and give them respect. So Vaishnava Prad is very, very dangerous. We see in the 9th canto how the Rasa Muni had offended this very exalted devotee, Amrish Maharaj. So the Rasa Muni was very proud. He was very confident that he'll be able to produce a demon and annihilate Amrish Maharaj. Amrish Maharaj, however, was totally dependent upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Sarve Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Amrish Maharaj was protected by the Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan means all auspicious. So he was protected by the Sudarshan Chakra of the Lord. And Amrish and the Rasa Muni had to flee because the rays of the Sudarshan Chakra were so powerful that wherever the Rasa went, the heat was burning his back. He went to all the demigods. The demigods said, we are unable to protect you. Finally, the Rasa, being a mystic yogi, was able to reach the Lord. And when he begged forgiveness for the Lord for having offended his beloved devotee Amrish, what did the Lord say? The Lord said, my devotees are very dear to me. Sadhva hridaya mayam. Sadhva, these sadhus, hridaya means heart. These sadhus, they live in my heart. So these exalted sadhus live in my heart, and I live in their heart. Therefore, they are very, very dear to me, and I cannot pardon you. So then the Rasa Muni had to go to whom? He had to go back to Amrish Maharaj, beg forgiveness, and he very easily forgave. He very gladly forgave him. So that is the nature of an advanced devotee. He forgives, but the Lord doesn't forgive. The Lord said, my devotees, they sacrifice everything for my pleasure. Their wives, their children, their assets. Therefore I reside in their heart, and they reside in my heart. Similarly, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are many nice stories on this point. One is the story of Amoga, the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So Amoga was very envious of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his wife, who were at one time infamous, however, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became exalted devotees. But Amoga, he was very, very envious. So, once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in Jagannath Puri, he was invited for prasadam by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So every day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and eat lunch prasad. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would eat prasad in different grihasthas' homes when he would visit a city. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would position Amoga, would not let Amoga come inside the house, because his wife would cook so many offerings, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would stand with a stick at the gate to make sure that Amoga did not have an opportunity to see what he was eating. And Amoga would be standing outside the wall, trying to hear if there is some fault that he could find in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's character. So one day, while his wife was serving Lord Chaitanya Prasad, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya just had to leave the gate for a minute to help his wife serve prasad. And Amoga took the opportunity and came in. And he saw the numerous dishes on Lord Chaitanya's prasadam table. And he said, look at this sannyasi. What type of sannyasi is there? He eats so opulently. So anyway, so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya chased him out of the house. So a little later, Gopinathacharya, the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, had come to meet Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya asked him, how is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? How is his son-in-law? So he was told that Amoga is sick with cholera, and he's about to die. So Lord Chaitanya was very concerned because he knew that his death may affect Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So he went to see him. And Lord Chaitanya placed his hand on Amoga's heart. Amoga was on his deathbed. And he said, Amoga, why do you keep envy in your heart? As long as your heart is envious and dirty, Krishna will not reside over there. So please remove this envy from your heart. Because as long as envy is there, Krishna will refuse to stay there. And as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said this, Amoga jumped up from his bed and fell at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and begged forgiveness. So anyway, the point that we're making is this, that if we have an envious attitude towards the Vaishnavas, sometimes one's envy extends to the spiritual master. One becomes envious. Oh, why is the spiritual master ordering me so much? Why is he saying this? Why is he saying that? So if we have this envious attitude, then Lord Chaitanya confirms that Krishna will not reside over there. We have to conquer over this envy. Just like there was another Brahmin called Gopal Brahmin. He was very envious of the fact that Lord Chaitanya was performing Harinam Kirtan in Srivas Thakur's house. So what did he do? He wanted to defame Srivas Thakur. So in the night he kept all the paraphernalia for worshipping Goddess Durga and his doorstep. So in the morning, when he got up, Srivas saw, all this liquor bottle, all this stuff for worshipping Durga. So he said, yes, see, everyone, I'm a worshipper of Goddess Durga. I'm not a devotee of Krishna. But nobody believes him. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the Brahmin got affected with leprosy. Leprosy? Yeah, it was leprosy. So he got affected with leprosy. He asked Lord Chaitanya, please forgive me for what I did. But Lord Chaitanya refused. Finally, after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, again he took Lord Chaitanya. And then Lord Chaitanya told him to go to his devotee, and then he was forgiven. So the point is this, on the devotional path, one has to be very, very careful. One should not take it for granted, I'm an initiated devotee, I'm this, I'm that, I'm telling me around everywhere, and I can commit Vaishnava Prad. No. If one commits Vaishnava Prad, then the gains of chanting the holy names are minimized, and if one continues to commit aparad, then your bank account actually begins to get diminished. Therefore, the statement of Lord Brahma that he cannot have a big sacrifice and at the same time be blasphemous to devotees, this is very, very important. So we cannot find happiness in this way. A Vaishnava is such a personality, he doesn't even like to give trouble to an ant. Judge Bharat, when he was carrying King Rahugana, he was so careful. He would not even keep his feet on the ground before seeing the leaf for the neck. There was no entity on the ground, isn't it? Because he did not even want to give trouble to an ant. So this is Vaishnava culture, that you do not want to give trouble even to an ant. And para dukha dukhi, when you see that somebody else is in distress, you also become distressed. So in the purport, Prabhupada also makes the point that according to Manu's law, that if somebody is a murderer, then that murderer must be hanged. This is Manu's law, life for life. If you committed a murder, then go and be hanged. But today we find that society has become so degraded that they've done away with capital punishment in many parts of the world. Today, at one time the theory was crime doesn't pay. But today the theory is crime does pay. So the big criminals are outside the prisons. It's only the small criminals who end up in the prison. The real big criminals, they are very easily operating all over the world. So the process, I should end the class now. So the process is that one who is a murderer, he must be hanged so that he doesn't commit any further sinful activities. Sometimes people all over the world, including India, are very fond of mundane welfare. Build a hospital, open a school and so on. So we give people education, we give them medical cure. But then when they become healthy or educated and they do sinful activities against the laws of God, have you helped them or have you endangered them? You have endangered them, you haven't helped them. So real welfare activity is to give people that knowledge by which they can terminate their mature existence. And that is giving people Krishna consciousness.